Hello, hi, welcome to the first meeting on Object-Oriented Programming series. In this meeting, we are going to discuss on the topic Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming. The main agenda of the meeting is as follows. Understanding the need of object-oriented programming, understanding the class, and understanding the object. So, let's get started. Let's do one activity to understand the need of object-oriented programming. The activity is to create a class with the name customer which holds the customer details and display the same details as output. For this activity, I am going to use IntelliJ IDE. The reason behind to use this IDE is most of the companies use this IDE for their projects. Meanwhile, you can also use Eclipse, NetBeans IDEs for this activity. Let's click on Create a new project. And select Java as SDK and click Next. Then here, no need of giving artifact or group ID for this task. So simply we will click Next button. The project name is a mandatory field to give. So I am giving the name as OOPS first meeting to this project and then click Finish. Until the project get built, let's recap what we had learned in the whole world of basics of Java. So far, everyone knows how to create a class, how to write a main method, and inside the main method, we all might have played with data types, variables, operators, loops, statements, and scanner class. So, in this activity as well, we are going to use some of that basic concepts. Here on the screen, you can see that project got created. On the left side panel, you can see we have a folder called SRC. Inside the SRC, there is another folder called as main. And inside the main, there is a folder called as Java. Right click on Java folder and select New and click on Java class. Give the name customer and click enter. Here on the main window, we can see that customer.java file is created for us, which contain public class with the name of the class same as file name. So now let's get start with coding. Inside the class, we will write a main method. Public static void in string args. Open the parenthesis and close it. Inside the main method, we will try to create customer ID, customer name, contact number, and address fields, which holds the customer's value corresponding to it. So first, string customer ID, which holds the value C101. Semicolon is a mandatory after each statement. After customer ID, we create string data type, customer name, which holds the value Stephen Abraham, followed by a long data type variable contact number. The value is as follows. Provide capital N at the end of the value is a mandatory as this variable is a long data type. Otherwise, it will cause an error. And finally, address of string data type. Which holds the value as follows. Send is street. So these are the four fields we created which are storing the corresponding values in it. Now let's create a simple functionality of the code by just printing out the stored values using println. I'm copying this line and pasting it below to reduce the time of writing the repeated lines of code. We will make changes as and finally address. So by this our activity got completed. Let's try to run it. Right click on the Java file and select run customer.main. Here in the down window we can see that customer details got printed which was stored in the variables. But here comes the main problem. The customer class is holding only one customer details at a time. And what if we want to store another customer detail? You might got an answer as we need to create another class for it. No, not a proper answer. Because what if I want 20 customer details to be stored in the project? Lot of files, lot of confusion. Then you might got another idea of using data structures. This answer partially can solve our problem because all the code gets stored in one file and it gets harder to find out which piece of functionality is stored at which line. Assume 2k lines of code in single file. In later stage, it creates problem to search any particular line of code. So keeping all code at one file without classifying them on the basis of priority of data getting stored. This process is called as structured programming. In structured programming, the main focus will be on only on the functionality and not on the data or state of real life entities. It becomes difficult to manage the code. Here comes to overcome these drawbacks of structured programming, we introduce a programming paradigm called as object-oriented programming. Here, in this paradigm, it not only focuses on functionality but also focuses on data or state of entities getting stored. How? The answer is we create class as a template. So let's see how the template is created by understanding with one example. Here, assume I have created an application form for admissions, and the application form is like a template which contains blank place to write the values. And the application also contains one box with heading describe about yourself. And the application name is class example. In the previous structured programming, whenever we are creating a class, we use it to give the default values to the variables. But in object-oriented programming, we are just making the variables with a blank space. So it looks like a template. Now, as soon as admissions get started in the college, I will create a multiple Xerox copies of this application template and distribute in the students to fill their details. Let's assume one student fill the details as follows. Name, age, gender, and describe about yourself. He made a sentence using the values stored in the variables. And the file name he kept it as object1. In the same way, another student filled the details as follows. Name, age, gender, and describe about yourself. She made a sentence using the values stored in the variable. And the name of the file is object2. Now, by keeping these examples in mind, let's redefine the class definition. A representation specifying the characteristics and behavior of an object is called a class. It is not a real-life entity, but a template for representing real-life entities. What is the meaning of real-life entity? The objects or the things which are existing in the real world are called as real-life entities, which is containing some values for it. And the object, which is a copy of a class, is a real-life entity which have some attributes and behavior. The class determines the attributes and behavior which an object should possess to belong to the class. Now, let's do hands-on coding with an example activity of how it is working. The activity is to modify the customer class such a way that it becomes a template to store multiple customer details and create a tester class which can be helpful to test the code. Now, let's modify the customer.java file. First point to remember, to make a class as a template, we should remove the main method from the code. And inside the class, we will try to create the fields with public as an access modifier. About the access modifiers, we will learn in the next upcoming videos. Public string customer ID, and we are just creating the variables. We are not giving the values to the variables because it is just a template. We should not have to give the values. Public string customer name followed by public long contact number, and finally public string address. These fields are acting as a template for this customer class. Now let's create a method for the functionality. Public void display details. Regarding the methods and regarding the word void, we will learn in the next upcoming videos. Just concentrate on how the code is working. And inside the method, we will try to print the stored details. I am copying this line and pasting it below to reduce the time of writing the repeated lines of code. We make the changes as follows. By this, the customer class has been modified to as a template. Now, let's create a tester class for testing the objects and the values getting stored into the customer template. Before going into the tester class, let's try to understand naming conventions of classes and method. The naming convention that we follow for the class, variables and methods are given below. So for the classes, we use Pascal case. The meaning of Pascal case is every word starts with a capital letter irrespective of where the word is, like on the starting or on the middle. If suppose, if we can see the second example, it's a regular customer. So we are starting each word with a capital letter. Capital R for the regular, followed by capital C for the customer. This type of naming convention is called as Pascal case. And for the methods, we follow camel case, where the starting letter of the word should have to start with a small and followed by the next words should have to start with a capital. See, for example, display customer details. As the display is the starting word, we will keep the first letter as small itself and followed by the next words for every starting letter of the next word, like customer capital C and details capital D. This is this convention is actually called as camel case. So in our code as well, we have to modify our method with camel case, and a class should have to be a Pascal case which starts with a capital letter. Now our code get completed. Let's try to create another class with the name tester and click enter. As soon as class get created, inside this class we will try to keep a main method. Open the brackets and close them. Now we have to create an object for the customer class to store the first customer details. Before writing it in a code way, let's try to understand some of the concepts behind creating an object. Once the class is ready, the next step is to create instance of the class. The meaning of instance is a copy, which can represent a real life entities. We are saying it as a real life entities because it contains some value which is getting stored. The instances are called as objects of the class. An object is an instance of a class. I said instance is a copy of a class. An object holds data for every instance variable of a class. It allows us to use the instance variables and methods specified in the class. Any number of objects can be created for a class. This is the advantage of the object. In Java, an object of a class is created using the new keyword. The new keyword is represented for creating of the object and having memory allocated for it. Variables referring to the object are called reference variables. In this above code, customer is a reference variable. And once an object is created, the object's method and attributes can be invoked using the dot operator, depending upon the access modifiers as shown below. So let's now create an object for the customer. So for creating the object, first we will write the template name customer, followed by the object name object1, followed by a new keyword, and this is actually called as a constructor. We will come to know about the constructor in the later videos. For up to now, you can remember as the template name followed by the brackets. And this is how we create an object. And we can assign the values to the template to make it as a real life entity by using the dot operator. So the object name is obj1 dot, and here we can say the IntelliJ ID is recommending which field we want to access. Let's start with customer ID, and the value we are going to store inside it is C101, followed by the next field, customer name, Abraham, followed by the next field, contact number, and followed by finally the address. And we can display the values by invoking the method display details. We can also do invoking of the method by dot operator. Here see, we can have the name display details. By just calling the name of the method, it will come to here and it will display the name. Before that, let's try to print and this is how we create an object. Let's try to create another object of the same customer template. We'll just copy this code and paste it below and make the changes as follows. The second object as obj2 and then obj2 followed by Steve's and let's do the change as follows. And our code got completed. Let's try to run this code. Click on the tester.java and then select the option run tester.main. We can see that both the customer details got printed. Now, let's try to understand one definition of instance variable. So each real life entity can have its own values for their variables. Since each variable in each instance of a class have different values for its variables, these variables are called as instance variable. How to identify them in the code? Just simply in the template, we are writing the variable names out inside of the class and outside of any of the method. So this is how we can identify the instance variables, and the methods in the template is called as instance method. So instance variables and instance method are the members of the template class. So let's just recap. By using object-oriented programming, we created a class as a template, and at the same runtime, we are trying to store two different values of the customer at the same time. How? We are using the concept of objects. The solution of the problem is we can use object-oriented programming. Now, finally, the advantages of using object-oriented programming are modularity, scalability, data hiding, and real-life scenarios. Modularity, we can break down the code into the smaller pieces so that it will be easy for us to get referred in the later stage. And we are trying to make the modifications for the class. We are making a class as a template, and we are using the objects to fill the values inside the template. And each object is a Xerox of the class template. And scalability, and we can increase the number of customer details as many times as we can, because the code will be very short in length and the number of file will also decreases by just creating an object is just a one line code. Data hiding, as we have done, we made our instance variable as a public type. We can try to understand the different type of access modifiers like private, protected in the later videos, and real life scenarios, how we can represent each and every item on this world into a code by just describing the functionality and the characteristics of the object which it is possessing. The object characteristics, usually called as fields, and functionality we write inside a method. Thank you. The next topic will be methods.